Do not drop your C10 until you finish watching this video all the way to the end. God is everything. Without God, I'm nothing. So if you're new here and it's your first time here, this is Iron Man, my 1983 Chevy C10. It has a 350, turbo 350 trans, and a posi unit in the rear with 342 gears. Nothing to it. So let's talk about what all went into my drop kit. My drop kit probably cost about $200, which for $200, this thing rides phenomenal. The front received cut springs and a new shock. The rear received a $13 flip kit from Amazon and some Beltec 2-inch drop shocks. The Beltec drop shocks were the most expensive thing out of this whole thing. I think they were like $100. That flip kit was $13 up front. That shock might have been about 50 bucks or so. I can't quite remember. That's about it. You have to take all of this apart, put your axle on top of your spring instead of the bottom side of your spring, flip it on top, bolt it all back together, and call it a day. But that comes with some issues, and we get ready to jump right into all of those issues right now. First issues I think most people are going to be concerned with is in here, depending on how wide your wheels are. These are 15 by 8s. There could possibly be some rubbing if you have 10s. I do still have a little bit of space. I think I could go with a 10. I think I would be fine. But depending on how big your tire is back here, you might have some rubbing. You might have to, make some love in here and make this work. But the biggest concern is probably going to be how close this axle is to the bottom of the frame. Now, in my case, the axle doesn't hit the frame, but I had turn downs that turned down over the axle. They had to go. They couldn't stay. They were pretty much like on the axle. Once I flipped it, they were right on the axle. Had to cut those turn downs off. As you can see, I just left the exhaust right in front of that axle. We are going to get this exhaust completely redone with 2.5 or 3 inch at some point, but that ain't what we're talking about. So let's talk about some of the mistakes that I made personally that you can do to avoid making those same mistakes. Few quick tips. Go ahead and do new bushings in the rear. Go ahead and do all new bushings, which I did do. Go ahead and do all new bushings. Polyurethane bushings, those metal bushings, they are extremely hard to get out. So I recommend cutting those babies out and go with polyurethane bushings. I don't know if I still have those polyurethane bushings in here. I don't. Polyurethane, once you put the polyurethane bushings in, all you do is they give you some kind of grease, slide your thin layer of grease on it, slide them in. They come together as 2 pieces. You push those 2 pieces in, put your metal bushing in between it, and you're good to go. No pressing, no nothing. You could take a plastic mallet and put it in when it's time to change them. Real easy, just like it is. Knock your metal bushing out. Take some and pry them out, they come right out. Best thing I've ever done on this truck, because I recently had to take them out to do this upgrade that we're gonna talk about. Now, can you make this drop work with your typical cheaper, with what I did, a $13 flip kit, etc.? Yes, it can work, and it does work. And we have to talk about the issue that I faced, but before we do that, I gotta give y'all some other tips. So if you're kind of new to messing with cars similar to me, you have to take this leaf spring completely off. Right now, for the guys who don't know, it's pretty easy. There's a shackle back here, there's a hanger up front, and there's 4 bolts up under this rear end, or on top of the, or whatever, up under the rear end, on top of the rear end, or whatever. Take those four bolts off, the leaf spring come down. Now, support it with a jack, etc., but that's not what we're talking about. I'm not here to tell you how to take them off. I'm here to tell you, mark the front and the back of your leaf spring. Literally take you something and paint it in, or write it in, scratch it in, whatever you need to do. Mark the rear driver side axle. You need to know which side go which, and which side is the front and the back, because I got completely confused and had to go to YouTube to look at some other guys' leaf springs to figure out the orientation of mine. Now, I still don't know if left and right is right because I didn't mark it. So learn from me, mark your side of your axles. My next tip is, I told you I did this for under $200. The thing about when you go with cheaper parts, Most of the time it doesn't come with new hardware. Sometimes it does, sometimes it may come with a few bolts, you know, etc. So what I did was I bought all new bolts and hardware to put up under here. Even the things that came with this kit, I had to modify. Like I had to put some bolts in a different way. Like one, you know, some of the bolts I got, they were too long. I had to put them in the opposite way, coming this way instead of going that way like they were from the factory. Doesn't affect anything. Even one of the plates, I had to literally take a grinder and grind it, you know, grind a notch out of it so that my shock bolt could clear it. Otherwise, the shock bolt was running right into it. Now, it does make it really close to your shock bolt, and it does require, you know, for you to slightly stick the bolt in, put your nut in your wash up there, thread it in, and then just let it pull it in like that. But I mean, for the most part, for $13 for a flip kit, I mean, it's really not that bad. I've had absolutely no issues. Truck drove fine. Truck drove fine. I've been driving it now for 6 months plus. It's been fine. So would the more expensive parts give you less headache? Maybe. But I've seen expensive stuff also require modification, so I couldn't tell you which way to go. Now, another thing that I personally dealt with was figuring out the best orientation for these new axle things, the things that the axles sit in when you do a flip kit. My issue was I couldn't figure out, because you get a plate, right? Let me try to make this make sense to you. There's a plate and it has a U inside of it. Excuse me, the axle sits down in that. It has 2 holes up under the bottom. I hope I'm drawing this image correctly for y'all. Has 2 holes up under the bottom. And you can take this thing and you can twist it this way, or you can twist it this way. The kit I bought for $13 didn't have a left hand or right hand, and it didn't say, hey, you know, this is the orientation. The 2 holes need to be at the back, or the 2 holes need to be at the front. So this is a transparent moment right here for y'all. Transparent moment. I don't even think my axle was sitting in the same holes for as the size. Once I got up here to make this last upgrade that I'm gonna give y'all at the end, once I got up here to make this last upgrade, I realized, I said, man, my axle look like it's sitting like this instead of dead straight across. And I'm pretty sure I had the axle too far back, which I need to get to this tip. You may have to put this together and take it apart unless you get a kit with clear instructions in it. You know, you might have to take it apart, see how far your drive shaft is sticking out, how your drive shaft angle looks. My drive shaft was sticking out so far, it was like halfway out of the transmission, simply because I just had those little cradle things, or whatever you want to call them, the little blocks or whatever, they was too far back. And I put it on the truck, put it in the truck, and drove for a little while. Then I rebuilt the engine. So I ended up having to install, not the name brand Caltrax, but a knockoff, like eBay kind of sort of brand of Caltrax, because what was happening was when I was hitting the gas, my axle was literally throwing my drive shaft up. Hitting the gas, it goes, throws the axle up, and it was literally throwing the drive shaft up into the bottom of the truck. Not aggressively, not to the point where I noticed it, but when I pulled the drive shaft, it actually showed me that it was slightly rubbing the bottom of the truck. Let me get up on here and show y'all a lot of this stuff. You know, nothing is good until, you know, you can show. So let me get up on here and give y'all some show and tell. One more thing, you might have to drop the size of your tire in the front. One of my tires is scrubbing. One of them scrubs when I make a sharp turn, but then it gets to a point where it doesn't scrub anymore. So you might have to drop your tire size in the front. I think these are 255s, I think. Yeah, 255, 70, 15. So you might have to, if your tires are that big, you might have to drop that, you know, the height of the tire down just a little bit, you know, or just, you know, not cut your spring as much in the front or whatever. So let's get to the rear. Like I said, most of that in there is new. There is that, hold on, let me drop y'all, let me get y'all color down. All right, there is that eBay thing. Like any other thing, it requires some kind of modifications to the spring to make it work. But that stops that axle from flipping up and touching that bottom of that truck. And that thing goes around to here, to the bottom, and definitely makes the truck ride way better. If I still haven't given you enough information, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, cause we finna go out and drive it. We finna go for a drive. So if I still ain't gave you enough, hit that button for me and come on back.